Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Tom Clancy's Without Remorse, starring Michael B. Jordan, Jodie Turner-Smith, Jamie Bell, and Guy Pearce, directed by Stefano Sollima from Sicario 2. Now, I walked into this thing thinking that it was going to be more action-packed than the movie that I'm presented, but let's see how it goes. Let's get into the movie. The movie opens with a professional sniper, John Kelly, played by Michael B. Jordan, and his troops in Russia with Lieutenant Commander Karen Greer, played by Jodie Turner-Smith, whom I first saw her in Queen and Slim, with her and Daniel Kaluuya, as they meet Robert Ritter, played by Jamie Bell, as he tells the soldiers he doesn't have any information about their mission, and to me, this character is absolutely useless throughout the movie, as the dialogue is again hard to understand, despite I really do like Michael B. Jordan in general. Unfortunately, he's no fun to watch in this movie, like in any other movie I've seen him in, even in that Fantastic Four reboot, which I gave a 5.8 out of 10. I haven't watched it since I last reviewed it, but this is pretty worse than that film, in my opinion. But not the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. After a mission gone wrong, John doesn't trust Ritter because once again the character is useless, and I don't understand what the fuck is going on in this movie. And again, this dialogue is very hard to understand. I mean, they're telling us locations, but they're not showing us what they're doing. For example, the assassins kill off the whole team of John's Navy SEAL team, as one is shot and one is ran over by a truck. And the only two people who survived are John and Greer. And am I thinking this is the dialogue of the daughter of Admiral Greer? But no, it's his niece. I found out later after I watched it from the other movies, but she never. Well, which did a. Let's move on. John's wife Pam gets killed by some assassins while trying to kill John, as John survives, go figure, because he's the protagonist, for Christ's sakes. And was I upset for Pam to die? Nah, not really. Because I barely knew her as a character, as she didn't matter in this movie, and I blame the director, and it's a shame because it's the same director as Sicario 2, which I liked so much. But better than this movie, as he didn't give any characters to connect with, which is a real problem from the get-go. At this point in the movie, I didn't trust Ritter, as he and his boss at the CIA, and I personally thought they were up to something bad. Only God knows what, and this plot makes no goddamn sense. Which is a shame because I wanted to like this movie, but it was giving me nothing as far as the plot is concerned. There's no plot except John getting vengeance, which, how many times have I seen this plot? It looks familiar. Secretary Clay, played by Guy Pearce, visits Lieutenant Commander Greer's office, and from that scene on, I thought that was the bad guy for this movie, because why hire Guy Pearce in a role like this to play the bad guy? It's that obvious, and I get the impression this movie is about the starting of a war with Russia. And I thought, why the fuck would you make a movie about starting a war with Russia? As it bothered me to death. In this movie particularly, since they tried to pick on Andrei Vasilev, I don't know if I'm saying that right, please forgive me, as the person who killed the Navy SEALs. But it wasn't really him, and I'll get to who by the end of the movie. But my god, this is just ridiculous. John tries to go after Andre as he's pretending to be drunk, which is so stupid, as he goes in a truck to follow Andre while getting to the airport, and as they arrive, John pours gasoline on Andre's car and burns it as he goes in the burn cart to get a name of the ghost that killed his wife. And he says John Kelly at first, but John continues to point the gun at Andre, and he finally tells him Victor Rykov. And Ritter wants John off the team, as Secretary Clay tells him he can't do that. And Lieutenant Commander Greer visits John while he's in jail, and he has information he wants to give Clay as message for the price of getting him out of prison, by Lieutenant Commander Greer herself. And she does, which is a missed opportunity, as this whole movie missed the boat on what the trailer gave me in the first place, as this whole movie promised me an action movie, and this only has like one or two more than Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit, but it's not promising as I was expecting, honestly. John is out of prison and meets with Lieutenant Commander Greer, Secretary Clay, and Ritter to tell him the information of the ghost told by Andre, as he tells them about Victor Rykov is by photos and wants to go after Rykov, as Lieutenant Commander Greer is against it, but Secretary Clay lets him go anyways as they get on the plane. And while on the plane, he asks Lieutenant Commander Greer about why she doesn't want him on the trip to Moscow, which is because she believes he needs to not go for vengeance reasons, which is very weird because John wants to stop the killer of his wife from existence, as this movie doesn't make any sense at this point. The plane is crashed in the water, and the water action scene did take too long, as I didn't care anymore, and I wasn't caring for the characters, nor was I caring for this movie. At this point, and I don't understand what the plot is whatsoever, which is always a bad thing for me, to not follow a movie's plot, but this is by far the worst Tom Clancy adaptations I've seen, as my opinion gets lower and lower by the plots of these movies. As the group gets to Russia, the group learns each other's first names, as John gears up to go and goes after Ritter about the mission, and I was wanting to turn off the movie at this point, but if it weren't for the show, I wouldn't have finished this movie straight up, as I was very disappointed in this movie by the end of the day. They get to a secure spot in Moscow where John can get a clear shot at Rykov, and they stay in the building, as at nighttime they go to Rykov's place, as John goes in there alone as he encounters Rykov, as they have a brief conversation until Rykov blows himself up, and the Americans get shot by a sniper, and eventually Lieutenant Commander Greer gets to the other side where the sniper is. And how the fuck did she get across without getting shot at? Which makes no sense, as I was very bored, and as like I said before, I was checked out of this movie at this point. John gets to her location while Greer is fighting with the sniper and stabs the sniper, and the Americans are surrounded in the building by Russian police officers. And this is what I was talking about earlier. This movie is about starting a fucking war with the Russians, and I hate that as a plot. Absolutely fucking hate it. John gets the other American soldiers out of there as a distraction, as he gets shot by a Russian, and gets somewhere safe and fights as a bunch of Russian soldiers, disguises himself, and blows up the building, as he barely gets out of there alive and gets back into their hideout. And this movie is all over the place. If I were to be honest at this point, because I ask, is this a Tom Clancy story or a movie about starting a war with Russians, or a revenge movie, as I was let down at this point? Ritter takes John to the boat on the way home, as my guess of Ritter as the bad guy was wrong, as he finds who's behind the killing of his wife. As we move on to the next scene, where Secretary Clay having dinner and going to the bathroom, as John learns he was the one behind the murder of his wife. And this is a strange reveal and a cliche choice of hiring Guy Pearce as the bad guy for an action movie like this. And it gets old real fast, too. I'm not going to lie there. John gets Secretary Clay in the car and with him in it, and he explains why he wanted to kill his wife Pam in the first place. And he drops them in the water with the car, as Secretary Clay says Pam before he dies. Because of his Navy SEAL skills of him, surviving under the water has paid off, as John Kelly is dead along with his wife Pam, and Greer gives John a new identity named John Clark. As he goes off on his own, and credits roll to another scene during the credits as John meets with Ritter. And I swear to God, I thought they were going to bring up Jack Ryan as part of this, from I learned a side story of the Amazon Prime TV show, which I might have to watch when I have the time but the climax was very familiar and cliche, and I was done with the movie at this point on. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 1.9 out of 10. I didn't want to be against this movie, as I really do like Michael B. Jordan as an actor, but the material has nothing to offer him, as this is the worst performance I've seen him in anything, including that Fantastic Four reboot. If anybody thought that was worse, try watching this. This is much worse than that Fantastic Four reboot, in my opinion. The plot makes no fucking sense, as it was really hard to follow, as some of this is familiar like a revenge movie and starting a war with Russia, which is the most insulting this movie offered. The acting is horrible, and this may be the worst Tom Clancy adaptation I've seen out of any of the movies. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for the Tom Clancy adaptation series, and until then, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I don't dance.